And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
The idea of this game, switching tracks, is very intriguing to me. When I was a kid, I lived near a train yard, and we used to go watch as they would a train would drop different boxcars and freight cars, and they would use a switch to make them go down different lanes and attach to different trains. And that was just fascinating to us how that worked. So that was interesting. And in this game is what you might think yet another train game, and in fact the front of this box doesn't really dissuade you from that. It's another train game. It's another pick-up and delivery game where you're going to pick up things and take them around. But what this game does is it gives you a whole bunch of cool options to do on your turn, and I'm going to stop here because I'm already giving my review a little bit. Let me show you how the game plays first. The goal of this game is to deliver 5 contracts. At the bottom of the board, there are different contracts, like this one here needs 3 blue cards. This one needs 2 blue cards and 2 brown cattle. This needs a cattle, a wheat, an apple, and then 2 of anything. And then the 6th contract just needs 6 of anything. They're differentiated between types, 6, 5, 4s, and 3s. You need to deliver 5, and you need to deliver at least 1 of the 3s, 1 of the 4s, and 1 of the 5s. The first person to do that is the winner of the game. Players start the game with this depot, which you build, and it even has a sticker that tells you what to do on your turn. In front of that, it shows your engine, and on your engine, you put a die, you start with speed 2, but that shows what your current speed is, and you also add a caboose to the end of your engine, which can hold 1 good that it shows. And you start with 1 switchman token. Players will then have the opportunity to do one of 3 things. They can add 2 more switchman tokens if they want. They can start at speed 3 if they want, or they can add a flat car to their train, which can carry an extra good. So you have to pick which one of those you want the best. There's also, these are called offices. They're basically special ability cards. 9 different ones. Players get to pick one of those, and then the game begins. Now, the first thing a player will do on their turn is, if there are any cities that have no goods in them for whatever reason, because they've been taken out or what have you, you'll flip the top card here and put 3 of that type in that city, unless that city is that color. So for here example, I turn over to white sheep. If I was putting it in Santa Fe, instead of putting white sheep there, I would put 2 of these black discs there, which are known as demand discs. Then after that, the player has the opportunity to change switches on the board. Now, the switches all start randomly here, but for each of these switchman tiles that you have, let's say I have 3, I can change 3 of these. When I change it, I can flip it over, I can rotate it. There's 3 different ways. There's a left turn, a right turn, and then the crossways. So I can change any switches on the board. Then the player, after they've switched those, is going to run their train. Players will start in one of the cities, and they're going to move spaces equal to their speed. Now, when you move, you can start in any direction you want, but once you start, you just keep going, and you can't switch directions in the middle of your move. If you hit a city that has a good, and you have an empty space for that good, you must take that good into your train from each city that you go through. If you have space, you must add them. If you get to a city where that's the same color as a good that's in your train, you must deliver that good. When you deliver that good, you simply take the good and you place it in your depot here. That's a good that you'll be able to spend later on. If you deliver a good to a city where there's a demand disc, you also get a demand disc behind your board. And it's possible to make more than 1 delivery or pickup per turn, depending on how big your train is and how you order your movement. Now, after that's done, players can then pay for an upgrade. They can spend goods to either upgrade and add more cars to their train. The first car you add is the flat car. After that, you add box cars, which give you more space for goods, but also subtract 1 from your speed. You can upgrade your speed, make your train faster to move on the board. Or you can buy more of these switchmen. Then, if a player has goods that equal any of these numbers and amounts down here, they can discard those goods, take the contract card, which is one of the ways to win. They also get a new office that they can use. So players have a chance to get more special abilities. When a player takes an office, they put it in front of them, and there's going to be a certain number of open spots on it. You're going to put activation discs on it. Each time you want to use it, you spend one. So for here, for example, I can use a good to satisfy a contract of a different type. So let's say I need 3 apples, but I have 2 apples in a tree. I can spend one of these discs, and now I have 3 apples. When all the discs are gone, the card's not useful anymore. However, when you finish a contract, instead of taking a new office, you can instead say, hey, I like the ones I have, I'm just going to refill it with discs. The offices do all sorts of things. For example, this one here, on this turn, your speed goes up 1, you can add 1 more good, and you have 1 more switchman. And this one here, the logistics office, you can start from any city rather than the city you're in. The express office lets you skip a city. And you'll notice the ones that aren't as powerful, you can use more times, so they certainly even out. Here, when I go to each stop, I can pick up no goods, or I could even pick up 2 if I wanted to. The manager's office lets me deliver a good to a different colored city. Here, whenever I cross switches, I can change each one that I cross. The storage office lets you store goods in it so that you don't have to deliver them and you can wait till later. And here, each delivery that you do is going to get you a demand disc this turn. Demand discs are useful because if you have a contract that needs a wild, they can cover that. If you have a contract that needs something specific like wheat here, 2 of them can cover that. And you can also spend them for upgrades and such. And that's how you play the game. The game's just going to keep continuing. Goods will be added and taken off from the board. Players will use them. Eventually, one player is going to get 5 contracts, 1 of each type. That player is the winner. Switching tracks is a game that I really enjoyed for many reasons. One, I had a chance to start differently than everyone else. You get 1 upgrade, and you can argue over which upgrade's best. I mean, I like starting with that extra speed because you can move faster, but the extra car lets me carry 2 goods. At the same time, if I can switch more tracks on the board, there's that going on too. And then the offices, they give you this special ability that no one else has because there's 9 different offices, and at the beginning of the game, each player will pick one of those in turn order, but once one's picked, no one else can pick that one. You might get it later on from one of the piles, the same one that someone else has, but it gives you this little bit of asymmetrical. And then you're moving around, and it's not that hard. You say, oh, there are some trees over there. Let's get them to these cities. I'm not sure about the theming. Does Cleveland only want trees? Don't they want apples once in a while? But it works for the game. You know, get these colors and deliver them here. Now, if there's one thing I've certainly noticed about the game, it's that if somebody really knows what they're doing, they can destroy everybody else because you can get caught up in the whole, ooh, I'll spend some goods and make my train bigger and faster and longer. Look at all these switches. Look what I can do. And someone else just won. So you got to find that point in the game where you stop upgrading and start using your goods to actually satisfy contracts. And I suppose you could change it if you wanted to and say you have to get 7 contracts to win the game, which would make the game a little bit longer and maybe allow you to upgrade some more, but you cannot get caught into that trap of, woohoo, I have the train of awesomeness. Well, no, you need to get the train of decentness. The graphic design of the game, it's certainly functional. It's easy to see everything, but it's really not that pretty. I wish that a better graphic designer had kind of overlaid the whole thing. But it's not hard to figure out how everything looks. And the pieces themselves are decent quality. And I like how the little depot here has a spot to put your things in, has the train. It's a good visual look to it. It's just that the graphic design itself, I mean, even the depot looks a little boring. But I liked it. I thought it was very enjoyable. The gameplay time on the box here says 45 to 60 minutes, and while I think it's a little bit closer to the upper limit of that, 60 minutes, gives you a pretty solid game. I'm starting to come around on pick up and delivery games. Hasn't always been my genre, but I played some ones recently which have really started to swing me around, and this is another one of those. This is a game that I'm very impressed with, that I'm saying, wow, I would love to see what I can do differently this time. The goods are going to pop up in random cities. Maybe I'll try with a different office this time. Maybe I'll try to see how I can maneuver my train. And the switches, which is the whole focus of the game, is a pretty neat concept. You're saying, okay, ooh, that switches in my way. I need to switch 3 switches, but I can only switch 2 of them. Oh, what am I going to do this turn? Or you say, hey, you know, I don't have anything to do with my switches. The route's pretty much the way I want it to be, so I'm going to switch these switches over here and mess with other players. A very direct interaction thing. So you say, well, I just get more ways to switch the switches. Yeah, but then you're probably giving up speed. So it's neat. It's a cool balance, not awfully thinky and difficult, but one that I had liked quite a bit. That is switching tracks. Dice Tower Judgment. Excellent.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
There.